just above 20 degrees here in southeast Louisiana. Pretty sunshine, but there ain't a bee flying. Nobody hanging out at the door. We'll get started with the video in just a minute with my buddy Jeff Horchoff. But before we do, this will probably be the last video that we post this year. And I just wanted to tell everybody, hope you have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we'll see you next year. All right, on to the video.
But the most exciting thing for me is like a cutout. And since I don't go into my beehives, doesn't mean that I'm not interested in what the bees are doing. Because instead of me opening up my beehives and looking at bees, I go and take them out of somebody's houses and I take that whole hive apart. So I get my fix of get my hands on bees. And so I do it though through removals. And one of the best tools that you if you ever think about doing it is to get you one of these things right here, a thermal camera. And they have so many different types of thermal cameras. You can get them for your phone, but no matter what type you get, you're going to spend probably about $300 for a thermal camera. Now this one, it's old. This is probably 5 years old. But what's really nice about a thermal camera is when you turn it on, that the way it detects heat. Can y'all see this? You see it, that image?
You're like you do a barking dog like that.
Yeah. You see the heat? And what happens is this image that you see, that glow, you see it in, let me show y'all back here. Look, I can show you on your feet. See on your feet, it's red. See, look how it is. Any kind of heat.
You sure can pinpoint the best.
Yeah, you can. It's like, and the other thing, the floor, the wall, what's really great about it is when it shows the hive, it actually shows where the studs are in the hive, because the hive is built between the studs. And so now you know where to cut the sheetrock, the plywood, whatever. There's the stud. You make a mark, make another mark, and that's part of the thing about when you do so many of them, and you run across all that very imaginative carpentry. Code, nobody knows about code. Yeah. You know, what is that? 16 inch on center? 30 inches, that looks good, and I'm gonna go with that.
It's cold outside.
So this thing locates in the chicken yard. What? It might be 8 inches, 12 inches, 15. This is like whatever. Let's put a stud here, okay?
If you've got bees in that wall behind you, where are you going to shoot? How are you going to shoot that wall?
So
between those two banners, right?
So all I'm doing, I point my gun.
So you're that far away from the wall?
Oh yeah, you're as far. And when you point, look, you see the beam?
Right.
You see the two lights on the wall?
Yep.
So I see the image on my camera, I shoot the beam, boom, I mark my stud, where the bees are in the top, come all the way down to where they are down here. That's where my hive is, right there.
So you're 10, 12 feet away from the wall.
I could be 20 feet away.
Okay.
It does. And it also shows temperature in there as well. So this is also a great tool in the wintertime. You want to go check your hives? Boom, go in there and it'll show you right where your cluster is. It'll show you the temperature of the cluster. It's a great tool. It really is. And when you're doing cutouts, you just have to have one of these things. They also have the scopes that is just like a telescope on a flexible hose.
Borescope.
And you drill a hole, they're okay, but
That right there.
yeah, that's the ticket. The thermal camera is the way to go. And so once you find the where the hive is, then you kind of like start getting your game plan, how you're gonna go about doing it, removing the material that's covering it and exposing the hive. And there's always, electrical, plumbing, wiring, everything that you got to consider. So I always let Ralph do that. He usually does, but when he's not there, I always use a multi-tool where it's just a really small little blade, and I just go in just the depth of the whatever, because I don't know what's behind there.
You should see the sparks that thing makes.
Charlie and I were doing one in Slidell, and I shot it, and everything looked good. And I'm cutting with the, I think I had a Sawzall, and I hit a wire, and I mean, like, pow. And what?
Made a good video.
Yeah, video did really good.
Did you post it on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Oh, I gotta see that.
It's called like Electrified Beehive or something like that. Yeah, it did really well.
That's about 3 years back, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been at least 3 years. And so there's definitely, dangers associated with it, especially like we did one not that long ago up in a meat where the bees were coming in right at the meter. I hate those. It's very, very risky to because that's everything is coming in right there. But Ralph, when we have Ralph, I don't worry about nothing because Ralph knows all about that stuff, and he did a great job on that. So there's definitely dangers, but when you so now you've removed the material that's covering the hive, and at this point, there's several ways you can go about removing the bees, and initially I did it the way JP did. You just reach in there and start cutting out comb with all the bees on it. It works. It does work, but man, it's just like honey is getting over everything. It's just a pain. So I said, man, they got to have some kind of tool out there that can help with this. And I started researching. YouTube is great for a lot for the research. If you got a question, somebody's done made a video on it. And so I went in vacuum cleaners for bees, and there must be 100 of them out there. And the one I probably made 3 or 4 of them before I came up found this design right here. And this design, it's called a robo type. I don't know why it's called that, robo type. And to me, it's far superior to anything else out there. It's bulky, it weighs a lot, yeah, that is its drawback. But as far as removing bees fast, safely, low kill rate, this is the vacuum right here. And the way that I built this is I use a separate head. And one of the reasons I like this type of vacuum, so I keep a strap on it. I keep a strap on it because I don't want it to come apart. But I love this type of head, and they don't make this vacuum head anymore. They don't make this model. It was a Ryobi is what I think it was. And
Got rigid on the front of it.
Is that what it is? What is it?
Don't say rigid up there?
Yeah, it is. That's what it is. It's a rigid. And it was a leaf blower thing, and that's why I like this one, because most bee vacs, they don't give you the option that this one does. This one gives the option of being able to clear out your hose with this, because this is your exhaust. So a lot of times when you're vacuuming, if you're vacuuming bees and they got honey on them your hose will get clogged up with bees. And once it gets clogged up, what do? You gotta undo your hose and go wash it out or something. You gotta clean it out. This one, all I have to do is, I have a gate on it down here that you can open and close this gate that will allow the bees that are in here already to stay in there, and no more that can go in. I'll pull this end of the hose off, and what I do is I pull it off, and the other end of the hose I just stick right up in here, and it blows the bees right into here. So in other words, you flush out the hose. This is the only vac that I know that has those type. This type that when you use a vacuum head like this, you have that option, which is a great option when your hose get clogged up. And I'm using a big hose. I think mine's only a 2-inch. This might be a 2 1/8 inch right here. And I use this is like a hard one. Mine's a soft one that I use. And you will get bees that get killed as they get back in there, because if you imagine little bees bouncing, boom, 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 through that hose and finally inside the chamber. But once they're in the chamber, it's all dead air in there. So the bees, on the bottom of this box right here, it's got a ramp. It's ramped. So once the bees come in here, they hit dead air, and then they crawl up, and then inside of this box is frames. So the bees will crawl on the frames, and by the bees crawling on the frames, the chance of heat building up, well, by them spreading out, the heat doesn't build up as fast. And I can vacuum bees, and I have generally it's 3 hours to vacuum, and I just run it the whole time. And I have killed bees overheating them, but that was in like really summertime weather. But I don't do removals in the summer anymore, so I don't have that problem anymore. So the bees will be vacuumed up in here. They'll go in here. Now, so that's the real advantage of using this type of head. The way that I did it, and I built this one, so I built all this to fit this. You could do them where you have. I've seen others like Ralph's. You actually take the vacuum head and mount it on your board. There's no lack of imagination. However you can make a vacuum head work, that's all you have to do. But in the process, you have to. You need to be able to bleed off vacuum pressure, the pressure in it. That's the whole thing about these things. And so that's what this little gate is right here. I can move this gate, and by opening it or closing it, I restrict or make the pressure inside the vacuum greater. So if the more closed it is, the greater the vacuum. The more open it is, you're bleeding off. So you want that point where I tested. I've actually got it marked on here. I've got a pencil mark showing that's my sweet spot right there. If it's open that much, then I'm good. Where I'm vacuuming bees at a good rate, but I'm not killing them. And that's what I want to get the job done as fast as I can, but not kill many bees. So that's very, very important. Your bleeding gate. And when I built the vacuum, the design of this was such that you have this board right here, the screen board right here, and what was really good about this was that you can take and pull this screen out. And what you did is you have all the bees, you vacuum all your bees in this box right here. They're all in here. So what you do is you get your comb with all the brood on it that you've rubber banded, put on frames, and you set it right here on top of this box. Put your queen up in there in a cage, and then you pull the screen out, and all the bees in here will just migrate up. Great, it works. The problem is that I always put honey in there as well, and I killed so many bees with the honey just dripping down on the bees. So I don't know why or what possessed me to do it. It's probably because I saw the dirt rooster doing it. He'd always just, after he'd do his removals, he'd just shake the bees, boom, and put them in the box, and they go in the box. So I got tired of killing bees, and I said, I'm gonna try that. So I did that, and that's all I do. So now what I do is, oh, it works great. As long as you have your queen, and even if you don't have your queen, because she'll stay in that box. But if you have your queen, I just rubber band my queen up, put her in the box with all the frames, all the honey on the side, and then I'll start pulling frames and bouncing bees into that box. In 10 minutes, all the bees are in the box. All the bees are in the box. It's a really, really great way of doing it. Now, on this particular one, I've done this a little modification on this one, because I still wasn't, I don't know, satisfied with how that really worked. So I added another cover to this thing, and what's really, really that, I don't know if y'all are ready for this, but oh, come on. That was the biggest part of my presentation. So I usually have frames inside of here, not snake. So this is the bottom of that box, and you can see how it's tapered. And this is all from dirt and trash and bees. This gets pretty nasty. I scrape it out, and it's all good. And then I put the handles on it to be able to put the straps on, and you can carry this. But this it's heavy. It is heavy.
Plus you can add whatever hive is big enough, you can add another hive to it. If you need to.
If you want to, yeah. You're not really. This is the great vacuum. Now, this is a sweet little gem right here. This one is electric, right? But this one is battery operated. Now this is an everything BVAC, and this one this is the second generation on it. He's done some changes on it. Every removal that we go on, I bring both up, because this one, even though this is my primary box, I have this one with me because after we do the removal, and you have all the bees in the windows or whatever, when I finish vacuuming the bees up, I'll remove the top part and the vacuum head, and just keep this screen part on here, because I want that heat that's built up inside that box to bleed off. You have to do that as soon as you can, because these things get hot. Charlie shot some video on that. We did a removal out in Baton Rouge, and I showed it, that the temperature, outside temperature, was like in the 80s, the low 80s, and then I shot the temperature right here, and it was like 95 degrees right here. It's like a good 10 degrees difference between what the bees were and the outside temperature. So it's really important to get the lid off of your BVAC and to let that heat that's built up inside of it, because you sometimes you might have 40,000 bees in here, and they generate heat. So you want to bleed that stuff off. You want to get it off. So as soon as the removal's over, I'll take the top off, and then whatever bees are left over, I use this one to clean up. Now I've done removals using strictly this BVAC, and there's a lot of people that do that. They just use this type of BVAC for removal. You can operate this machine for probably 4 or 5 hours on the single charge, rechargeable, and it's got very good suction. However, if the hose gets clogged up, the only thing you really can do is like so when you turn it on and you vacuum bees, you're probably at that speed. If your hose get clogged up, you can boost it up a little bit, but you're gonna have to pull that hose off and clean it out, because it's just gonna be clogged up. And he did go about and change it up where now you can use this gate. This is just one of those like trail or sewer thing, I think. And he drills some holes in there to get the bees to breathe. He's got the motor, and he's got screen around it so the bees can't get up inside of there. You can charge it up. There's ports up here to charge it. And then on the inside, where just like my screen up there, he's got his screen right here. And then instead of frames, he puts all that chicken wire inside there. So you have to give the bees someplace where they can spread out so that they won't burn up, because they will. So this is a great little bee vac. You don't need electricity, so you can do this at places that are remote. But where these things really shine is catching swarms. If you got a swarm hanging in a tree or a bush, and this is what you want with you right there. Because, so you go there, you put your box under there, you shake them in there. 20 minutes later, they're still flying around. You say, man, I'm gonna eat. This thing, you get there, you pull up, you vacuum bees. 15 minutes later, you're out of there. And there you take the lid off, and you can look for your queen or not. She's going to be in there. I look for the queen anyway. But these things are awesome to do swarm catches. They really are. They're not inexpensive. They're about $600, I think. But Kenny will never buy one.
Kenny will make his. That's the first thing. Kenny can make that.
Oh yeah, and you really can. Anybody can make any of these things. I mean, this. But what's
on a full charge, how long will that run?
6 hours. 6 hours.
Yeah.
This
full
is.
very much amperage on.
No, they're lithium batteries, and this is the one that runs the longest. I got the one that runs the longest.
What kind of price tag they got on that?
I think they're about $600. I think. Yeah, but so what? How much does a nuke cost? 200? 175? You can catch all them nukes right here, and keep on catching them too. And then you go do some more. How much time I have left, Mike?
Till you're
Ball
done.
game's at halftime right now.
Second quarter. It's 7, man. You got plenty of time.
Well,
We usually go. Our hours are from 6 to 7. We never do that. We always go to about 8. So.
well, I'm about played out. What? I mean, look, I gave you my bet.
No, you're not even close to me.
You say that. You just don't want to get back up here. So
talk about what time of year you guys are doing. Like right now, coming up is the ideal time to start.
Oh, yeah.
What's the survival rate on some of them?
you would logic would say, well, it's getting ready to be winter. Bees are, everything's closing down, and logically you'd think, well, it wouldn't seem like it'd be a very good time to do removals. In truth, I think December, January, and February are the best times to do a removal. And why? And the reason
They're all there.
it's the smallest amount of bees in a hive. If you do it December, January, they've already gone through the worst part of the winter part. Well, February is actually the worst, but they've made it through pretty much. And come January, our queens they're already starting laying. So the fewest amount of bees, almost zero brood in there, which is really a good thing, because what happens when you do removal, if it's capped brood, and since I take so long in doing my removals, if it's capped brood, and once I do the comb, I put it in ice chest, and by putting it in ice chest, that comb actually is very warm. It could be 90, 92 degrees. By putting it in an ice chest and stacking the pieces next to each other, the temperature of that brood might only drop to 80 degrees. So it's still viable. if it's capped. If it's not capped, they're not gonna make it. They have to stay warm. And that's why, you know, the bees stay on that comb, because they're doing their job. Even though you're taking that hive apart, they're keeping the brood warm. That's their job. And so you're vacuuming them off of it, and it's just been my experience that when you do the removal, as long as you have capped brood, that brood will make it. But if it's uncapped, they're gonna die, and once you frame all that stuff up, the bees will come back, they'll pull all that stuff up, drag it out, eat it, whatever they do with it, but they'll clean it up. And that capped brood, it will come out. Those bees will emerge. They won't die, which is a very, very good thing. So you're not gonna lose all that brood. So it's the best time to do removals, in my opinion, at this time of year, because they have the highest survivability rate, as opposed to doing one particularly in June, July, August, or September. Those guys struggle, and it's very hard for them to overcome first the removal part, and then with the hive beetles, the stress that they've done, the hive beetles, they don't make it most of the time. So I don't do removals in July, August, and September. I've learned it's not even worth doing, because the bees, they don't make it. So I'll start up again. I mean, I'll do them if the need is there, that has to be done, but I prefer waiting any of those, but those 3 months. I don't like doing at those times. The other thing about when you do a removal at that time of year is you don't get to keep any of the stores. You have to give it back to the bees. That's what they need to survive on. It's very unusual for me to do a removal that there would be a surplus of honey that I would get. So normally when we do a removal, the honey that we pull out of there, I'm very careful. I don't like breaking the cells and having honey drip. I'm real careful about that stuff, and I only put comb honey that's not wet, because if it's wet, the beetles will get it. Now, as we get later on in the year, the chances of beetles overtaking them becomes less, but still, it's always the best bet to put dry comb in your hive when you're setting up again. And I separate my brood comb from my honeycomb. I don't keep them in the same ice chest. Brood stays with brood, honey stays with honey. And when I get back and I'm framing this stuff up, I use Kenny's method of framing up the comb. You get Charlie made him a nice little stencil. I just put it on the comb, cut it out, put that piece of comb in the frame, and using a 7-inch rubber band, you crisscross your corners on one side, put your comb in there, flip it over, crisscross the band again, and boy, it stays in there really good. So that was Kenny's idea, and he didn't charge us a nickel. The way he says it is that he could have made $1 million on it, but his wife got it.
He said that on video too.
That's right, that's true. Did he tell you?
He let me watch the video.
Let's see.
Do you take home your winter cutouts and feed them?
Yeah, so a lot of times you got to, when they don't have sufficient stores in them. And so that is, you better have some, and I don't feed them sugar water, I feed them honey. I've got a lot of honey that I keep just to feed bees. There's a lot of school of thoughts on, well, just feed them sugar water now. In my opinion, they need the extra nutrients, proteins, whatever is in the honey, they need it. When I pull a hive and I can't use the comb, I crush and strain the comb, and then I feed it right back to them. And I do this. I take the hive body, I put a inner cover on top of that with a hole in it, and I put a quart jar of honey in there. I actually put 2 jars of honey, one of them on them and one of them in it. And then I put another super on top of that, and when one runs out, I fill it up. I trade bottles, fill that one up. So right now I am feeding about 6 hives right now that
The ones that are on the back.
yeah, and so I keep these on the back porch of the honey house because those are the ones I don't want to put them out in the yard where I don't know where I put them. Like right there on the back of the porch, and I just go out there and fill up the jars, and they do very well. They do very well. They'll make it through. They will make it through. And then come springtime, I'll be splitting those bees. There's no doubt those bees will get split or sold, one of the two. They're going to be great bees. They made it through. That queen is laying. They're in very good shape. But that's the only time I feed is that time, because feeding bees it's work I'm not interested in doing. And the bees better have their interest at stake. Because I don't have it. I want them to live, but they better do it on their own, because we don't have no welfare bees if they have. We really don't. They tough. They don't get attention. They really don't, which is why I've got some in the back. I might visit those things twice a year. I don't go back there, and they're mean. They're mean. They don't know humans.
Oh, yeah.
And Charlie testified, just like you better have your suit on when you go back there. But working them, once you start working them, it's not bad. But they don't like you showing up. They do not like you showing up. And I have all those underneath 2 structures, 2 14 by 14 lean-to structures. And I'm a big supporter of keeping bees under structure. Bees do better if you put them under a roof. You don't have to close them in the building, but if you put them under a roof, they're going to do better, which is another reason why I put the cutouts on the back porch, because it's covered. They do better. There's no documentation on that. You won't find any. But I can tell you, from observations of doing removals, that when you pull bees out of somebody's house, those bees, they are in great shape. And why? Because they're sheltered, they're protected. And that little bit of difference can make a big difference in the survivability of those bees. They produce honey, and that survival trait of being able to fight disease, beetles, mites, they're gatherers, and if they weren't, I wouldn't have taken them out the building. They would have died already. But when I took them out, they're good. I love mongrel bees. I really do. It's great stock. Because the bad stock that you get, they die out. It's okay with me. It's okay. And that's why I don't worry about when bees die. It's just okay. We'll just move on. We'll get some fresh ones and try again. I'm like the laziest beekeeper there is.
Talk about how you're so good at finding queens. Because every video, I say, 95% of the time you find the queens? I know what your theory is. I watch you. I've been on cutouts.
He brings her with him. That's what.
The thing is that we got Charlie has a special training program where he breeds these queens that come out on cue, and so every cutout we do, we bring one of these with us. And it's been working.
It's a trick on a cutout. It's not like being in a hive. It's hard to find them.
Yeah.
The truth is, I have better luck finding bees in a cutout than I do in my own bee boxes.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's like I can't find the doggone queen in my own boxes. But truthfully, I attribute it all to grace, of course. It's just grace, and then it's also the method that I do. you gotta think, if you keep knocking the number of bees down, sooner or later, you're gonna find a queen. Because I mean, you're starting out with 40,000, and when you find her, you might only have 1,500, you know? So you have a better chance of finding her. But that being said, there's also, I don't start looking for the queen until certain times when, because I know she's not going to be on any honey. And generally speaking, you're going to find her where you find the newest brood. That's generally speaking. That's what's going to happen. But as you start removing comb and the comb starts disappearing, she runs. She'll run, and she'll run to the back of the hive. And so as I'm dissembling the hive and I'm looking for her, there's times where she's still on the comb and I do find her. That, I don't know the percentage times, but I would say the most often case is that I'm going to find her at the very end of the removal when I've only got just a few bees and there's no more place for her to run, and then I'm going to find her. But there's other times where I find her pretty quick, and it's a grace. That's all I can tell you. You know? And I've seen so many queens. I don't know. To me, they just stand out. They just stand out. There's something. How can you find one bee? All these bees are right there, and yet you see a queen that she's buried under all these other bees. For me, what really catches my eye initially is that spot on her back. That's what I see in a cluster is that, because even though they all have spots on their back, hers is different. I don't know, it's different. And then if she's in the open where you can see her, you know, her whole body, well, that's obvious. But a lot of times I'll see her under bees and I'll tell her, there she is underneath there. Well, you can't see her, but I know she's there because I see that spot. And
It's the butt. He's a butt
Oh,
guy.
yeah.
He sees the butt. That's the first thing out of his mouth. Look at the size of the butt.
It is, but that's when you see her running. But if she's undercover, all right, that queen will actually stick her butt inside of a cell to hide herself. She is like the best at evading notice. She really is. They've got that trait in them. It's amazing.
I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give us that thumbs up. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.